Theme music, please. Aloha, I'm Mick Kalber.
And I'm Bruce Omori. And you are
On Hawaiian Time. On Hawaiian Time is a podcast where Bruce and I talk story about life unfiltered here on the Big Island. Welcome to another episode of On Hawaiian Time. Bruce is joining me from his Extreme Exposure Gallery in Hālau.
How's it?
And I'm at home in Leilani Estates with my lovely wife, Ann.
Aloha.
And our amazing producer, Tim.
Hello.
Today's guest is my cousin, Sage Takehiro. Sage is an English teacher at Kamehameha School in Kauaʻi, and she is also a member of the world-renowned Hālau o Kekuhi, based right here in Hilo. Welcome, Sage.
Thanks, guys, and Anne.
Hi, Sage.
Welcome.
Hey, welcome.
A quick editor's note here. This is part 2 of our talk story with author Sage Takehiro. You can hear part 1 by listening to episode 7, but you don't have to listen to them in order for them to make sense. Without further ado, episode 8. Sage, what is your favorite place on the Big Island? What is your favorite?
My favorite place on the Big Island? YPO.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think
like
that's
God's
probably
country.
my favorite place on the Big Island. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
How about you, Bruce?
Oh, it's got to be. I mean, there are 3 places on the island that I really love. Waipiwa is one of them. Summit of Mauna Kea is the other, and then Kilauea, of course, is.
Why, Bruce? Why do you like
favorite.
Kilauea so much, Bruce?
Let me think.
Has something to do with that orange stuff.
Yeah, I lava it.
Oh, man. Kilauea. One of the things I was going to ask Sage, and when Bruce mentioned Kilauea, it reminded me of the 2018 eruption, and I was watching CNN. I was actually here on the island with Mick and Bruce, and we were documenting it. And CNN was reporting, and they said, thousands of Hawaiians are being evacuated from their homes in the Leilani Estates subdivision. And I don't know who was in the room with me, but they kind of cringed when the reporter said it that way. So my question at that time, and I kind of knew, but I'm always wanting clarification on things that I'm not familiar with. I said, well, what is Hawaiian, or who is Hawaiian? How is that defined here in Hawaii?
Genealogy.
Because Bruce is what? Bruce, you're 3rd generation from Big Island?
Fourth.
And Anne, you're
Third
generation.
but no Hawaiian.
But no Hawaiian.
No.
So that's what I'm interested in. So someone could be 3rd generation, 3 generations of their family have born and grown up in Hawaii, but they're not considered Hawaiian, right?
I would never consider myself Hawaiian.
Okay.
Yep. I'm local.
Hawaiian is such an
I'm not
arbitrary
Hawaiian.
word.
Yeah.
Well, I think the problem comes, if you're from Kansas, you're a Kansan. It doesn't matter, what your ethnic background is, but Hawaiian could refer to somebody that lives here, could refer to the race. It's usually referred to the race, right? That's where the confusion comes, I think.
If you're in New York for 2 weeks, you're a New Yorker.
Exactly. That's my point.
All you got to do is swear at people
That's my
it.
point.
out your car window. You're a New Yorker.
And honk
Forget
your
about
horn.
it. But that's
No, here
yeah.
people who live here aren't, if they're not Hawaiian, they're not participating in Hawaiian culture and loving Hawaiian culture and loving the places here. It doesn't not being Hawaiian doesn't take away from that. And our culture has actually grown so much and evolved so much because of people who are not Hawaiian, who have contributed to the academics and the language development and the songwriting and the teaching. So I think that when you're inside of Hawaii, I think that people who are here, like, are not trying to be Hawaiian. They're just being who they are. And the Hawaiian is okay with anyone, really, as long as they are respectful to the place and the people. So I don't think that we have this word haole, which I think I used to have a column in a local newspaper, and someone from Maui wrote in and said that I was racist because I used the word haole.
Oh, really?
Wow.
Yeah. And then I thought that was kind of weird because I think that in the past, there has been racism against all kinds of races. I just think that generally the world has historically been a very racist place. And that racism came to Hawaii like any other trend, you know? And so my grandma, you know, my Japanese grandpa and my grandma fought all the time. And she would tell him things like, yeah, you fucking Jap. And, you know, they would fight like that. And it's not like, I don't know how to describe it other than racism here, I don't think is as dangerous as racism in other parts of the world. It may have been at one point. Like maybe when my dad was growing up in Honolulu, I know they had these kill haole days, or on the last day of school, like all the haole people would get beat up.
Yep.
My baby daddy also he was born in Massachusetts, and he moved to Kona when he was, actually they moved to Kona first, and then they moved to Kauaʻi when he was really, really young. So he grew up in Kauaʻi being white, half Jewish, half German. Okay. So he had a hard time growing up. I think that but I think everyone faces that kind of racism here. I think that no matter what kind of race you are embraced and you are hated. And race is not necessarily a thing that we use to only discriminate. We also use race as a thing to celebrate. Like if you start dating someone, the first thing your friends are going to ask you are like, oh, what are they? You know, and then you'll tell them what kind of mix the person is, and they'll be like, ooh, you know, and they'll get all excited. And so it's not a racist thing, I don't think. We're racist, I think, in healthy ways and unhealthy ways, but I definitely don't think that the racism here is nearly as bad as other places.
You know, I think you're right. When I first moved here, one of the things that I loved about this place was the diversity, the ethnic diversity.
Yeah.
You know, one of our favorite games is trying to figure out what people are, you know, Chinese, Filipino, you know, what, Hawaiian, Hālau. But you know, I've lived in San Francisco, I've lived in Denver, I've lived in Chicago, and you know, it's different in all those different places, you know, and I don't see the vitriol. I think it is for children. I think it can be for children, like you said, kill haole day. My son had a really hard time when he was in junior high, Hilo Intermediate. But, you know, I think for adults, I see racism, but I don't feel threatened by it. I don't feel it's ever been a big deal to me. I love the culture here in that way, you know. It's diverse. This is actually the most ethnically diverse county in the United States. Did you know that? That's true. On the census, more people from Hawaii County claim more than one ethnic background than any other county in the United States.
Totally. I mean, if you're a human being in 2020 and you're like 100% anything, really, take a DNA swab. You could be Neanderthal.
Could be an alien.
Right. Because you look at human evolution and it's like none of us are 100%, Not
anymore.
Balinese or whatever. Yeah, it's just unrealistic. People need to get over that.
Are there any 100% Hawaiians anymore?
I think there may be some.
Not many, right?
A few, but not many. But the thing about the Hawaiian is that blood quantum thing has been imposed by the federal government. So back in 1910, when the Organic Act passed and people were doing homesteads like in Ohio and stuff, that applied to the territory as well, right? So Hawaii was a territory of the United States at the time. And so what Prince Kuhio did is he lobbied for the homestead under the Organic Act to be limited to people of Hawaiian ancestry. And the reason why is because Hawaiians never had this concept of land ownership. Whereas like in America, you go to school, you learn this song, right? This land is my land. This land is your land. And somehow all the little kids grow up thinking that whatever's below their feet belongs to them. That's really harmful for humanity to raise human beings to think that about their planet. And Hawaiians never thought that. Hawaiians always thought of the land as the leader and the human as the servant. And so
Interesting.
we never bought into that
Aina.
land ownership thing. And so Hawaiians are being displaced and they weren't able to feed themselves because they were sick and they were dying and stuff. And so what Kuhio did, he's like, all right, he didn't have a vote. Because he was just a liaison, he was just a lobbyist. He, as a representative of the territory, he didn't have a vote in the legislature, the U.S. legislature. So what he did is he went to Washington, and this is written in his biography. He went to Washington and he opened a gambling house. And he got all the politicians wasted. And they partied and they gambled, and he was famous for having this really awesome gambling house. And so when he went to pitch his idea, he learned about them. So by getting them drunk and partying with them and getting to know them personally, he learned about them and he learned about their fears, and he understood that the United States was not on good terms with Japan. And so what he did was he said, hey, you guys, guess what? All those second generation Japanese who were born in Hawaii will be able to access homestead lands based on the Organic Act because they were born there. The only way you can prevent Japanese from having homestead lands, American homestead lands, is if you designate those homesteads to Hawaiians only. And they bought in. And so they applied the blood quantum theory, which is the same process they use to determine the Native American reservations. And so they're like, okay, if you're 50% Hawaiian, meaning, one parent is Hawaiian, a full-blooded Hawaiian or whatever, however they want to break it down percentage-wise, then you can apply for a homestead. And then later on down the road, they're like, okay, well, there are barely, Hawaiian, full-blooded Hawaiians anymore. So what are we going to do? So they made it, okay, well, 25%. You can inherit your homestead if you have 25% Hawaiian. Right? So this is pre-DNA swap. So these percentages that the federal government based people off of in order to determine their access to native land essentially is kind of like imaginary blood. Like it's like this imaginary theory of like how much Hawaiian are you, right? Or like how much Japanese are you, or how much Italian are you?
That whole process is obscene.
Isn't it,
It's
though?
awful. It's just awful.
It is.
And then so you have these young kids growing up thinking like, oh, well, I'm, only 10% Japanese. So their identity then becomes shaped by that imaginary blood quantum that doesn't exist. And then you have a bunch of mentally ill people because they were never taught who they really are.
Sage, one of the things that I've struggled with here is pronouncing Hawaiian terms, Hawaiian words, street names.
I hate to laugh.
Mick and Bruce are laughing at me because they're always correcting me.
It's for entertainment.
And I want to know, the school where you teach at, do you guys teach the Hawaiian language there? And can I come over there
Really?
if you do?
Can we drop?
Can you help
Drop
Timmy?
out of a
Please,
class or two.
please.
Really?
Well, every school teaches Hawaiian language. I think the difference between my school and public schools is that at Kamehameha, Hawaiian language is a requirement. Like in order to graduate from Kamehameha, there are certain graduation requirements. English is one of them, but Hawaiian is also one of them. So you have to take a certain amount of years. I think it's 2 years of Hawaiian language. That's mandatory. They can take it either at middle school or high school.
Is there a resurgence of the Hawaiian language here as of late?
Oh, there has been, for sure.
So maybe I need to enroll in a class at University of Hawaii, Hilo.
There's free classes. I can send you the link
Free?
to the free community classes.
Really?
Yeah.
Perfect. Perfect.
Tim failed at pronouncing a popular surf spot's name.
What?
He said Pipeline.
Oh,
No, I was totally set up.
Yeah.
I was set up by Bruce. Bruce asked me to pronounce a bunch of Hawaiian names, and they were...
He tricked him.
He
is
tricked
what he
me.
Did.
And
Okay.
bit
But you know what? It wasn't very hard to trick him, was it? No.
Well, after I tried to unsuccessfully pronounce a bunch of Hawaiian names, he said, okay, now pronounce this one. And he spelled it. He said Pipeline. So naturally, my brain was still thinking in Hawaiian words. And so it's a trick. So I said, Pipeline. You know, obviously,
Sounds Italian,
it was
doesn't
not
it?
a Hawaiian word.
No.
Pipeline was the correct answer.
Our favorite one was having visitors come and they said they had this great lunch. Where'd you go? It was a cafe. What cafe? They said Cafe I'o'o. No, it was Cafe 100.
Cafe 100.
Trying too hard.
Cafe I'o'o. So that's kind of stuck for us. We go to Cafe I'o'o.
Oh, man.
Speaking of language, I want to rewind back to what I had said about racism not being as dangerous as it was in other parts of the world. I still feel that way, but I don't want to say that racism has not been hurtful and violent in Hawaii. Because it has been, especially for older generations, like my grandmother's generation. I think that whole generation, like, period, no matter where you were on planet Earth, was like a bad, violent kind of a culture. So yeah, anyways, I just wanted to make that correction.
There was a time when the Hawaiian language was kapu, right?
Yeah, so when Kalakaua was, losing his authority, and after the queen was imprisoned for treason, what had happened was the Hawaiian people began to communicate, and they're very politically charged. And they communicated, they had tons and tons of Hawaiian language newspapers. And so this political rhetoric was happening that in a language where the dominant party at the time couldn't understand what was going on. So while the queen was imprisoned, she was in prison. They didn't let her have communication. They didn't let her have letters. So what the people did is they wrote songs in Hawaiian, and through those songs, the messages were sent they were encoded in the metaphors of those songs. And you can only really understand these metaphors if you understand the language. And they would wrap her flowers. They would send her flowers in prison. And they would wrap her flowers with these newspapers. And they would go through all her mail. They'd take away all her mail, take away all her letters, but they let her have her flowers. And so that's how she was able to read what was going on. And so as the Hawaiian community at the time began to uprise against the provisional government, which was established after the overthrow and later became the territory or the Republic of Hawaii after annexation. So what they did was they wanted to Americanize the Hawaiian people. And in order to do that, they had to disempower their communication and disempower their identity and disempower their basically their mental and spiritual health. That's, I think, any kind of, I have a political science degree, so I've studied colonialism. You know, it's not an uncommon thing that has happened throughout history.
Hey, by the way, we have to talk about Sage's writing. Sage, I know you've had many writings published, but I also know that you've got a book of poetry called Honua. Sage, would you mind sharing something from the book?
Actually, I think I don't have Honua on me right now because it's in my office and we need to get clearance to go there. But I have one of my first poems that were published. So I'll read the first poem that was ever published of mine in the OEV Journal, Volume 3. It's called Vacation on Hawaii's Big Island. Vacation on Hawaii's Big Island. You're coming to paradise, but don't imagine grass huts on the beach. Extremely modern and sophisticated tents and tarps only. Complete professionals treat you with aloha, renew, refresh, amaze, and deeply touch spectacular, unspoiled nature. Government housing restrictions do not apply. Uniquely nourish the warmth of authentic aloha spirit. Feel the presence of this special place. Natural wonders abound. Please do not feed the animals. Mysteries of outer space touch the heavens atop Mauna Kea. Observatories are closed due to massive snowing. Immerse yourself in an ocean of total clarity, graceful beauty, elusive grandeur, spectacular scenic vistas blaze the afternoon away. Fire demonstrates power, fiery scenes fast flowing underground, slow tempo of surface flows descend into the sea. Next, on Wild on E, Playboy's newest issue features fire goddesses at Hawaii's steamy volcano. Eager visitors flock, dominate the landscape. Fiery glow of red heat crawls. Spectacular Kilauea show. Fertile lava landscapes of lush greenery, cool and misty ohia spring forth and flourish. 17-year-old Keahi Ho'oulu is pregnant with her second child. She dropped out of high school to clean toilets at the breathtaking, fantastic Hawaii Volcanoes National Park, open 24 hours every day of the year. Forests of verdant plant life dance legendary hula in the rain. Savor succulent exotic hues of a colorful culture mix that pampers, restores, and heals your body and your spirit. Hawaii's whole culture is based on aloha. And that's a commitment that we take very seriously. And that's that one.
Thank you.
Awesome.
Wow.
That was beautiful.
That was great.
Sage has taken the motto of this podcast to new levels, unfiltered talk about Hawaii.
Absolutely.
That was unfiltered. Thank you.
Well, that was just a poem that I wrote long ago.
That was great.
And you have a book called Honua on Amazon.
Yeah.
I noticed. I did my research of you. My research,
Okay,
which consists
Tim.
of Googling.
Okay, Tim, repeat after me. When you learn Hawaiian, they'll tell you ho'opili. Ho'opili means to repeat it. One of the meanings of ho'opili
Ho'opili.
means to repeat it.
Okay.
So say ho,
Ho,
nu,
nu,
a,
honua,
honua. There you go.
honua.
Good job.
So the emphasis is on the o in ho.
Honua. Honua.
There you go. Pololei, mai kai.
Mahalo.
I need to get some coffee.
Coffee, more coffee, Bruce?
Coffee break.
Bruce needs
Coffee
coffee.
break.
All right, Bruce. Well, while you're getting more coffee, this is a good opportunity for me to explain that we receive a small commission if you buy anything we promote or endorse on this podcast at zero cost to you. And we always link those products on our website. What kind of coffee are you drinking?
Yeah, I drink Ka'u Mana, which is 100% Ka'u grown coffee.
That's your brand, Mana? What's the story with that?
Yeah, Ka'u Mana. I've been drinking coffee since I was a kid, and I just love coffee. I used to be hooked on Kona coffee, but then I tried Ka'u coffee, and Ka'u coffee is smooth. Yeah, it's really good.
He sounds like a salesman, doesn't he, Tim?
Yeah, I Bruce got me a bag of his Mana coffee yesterday. I drank it this morning, and it is really good. And I have a total conflict of interest here because we're going to start selling Bruce's coffee on our website. So this is completely biased, but it really is good. And we just thought, hey, Bruce drinks this stuff all the time. He drinks it way too much, actually. So let's give people an opportunity to buy that coffee, support Bruce. And Bruce has been so generous. He's going to give $5 a bag of any coffee he sells to the On Hawaiian Time podcast.
Wow,
But Tim,
thanks.
where can we find that coffee?
On HawaiianTimePodcast.com
There you go.
in our merch shop.
Nice. Thanks, Bruce.
You're welcome.
Yeah.
Hey, and while you're there, you could pick up an On Hawaiian Time mug.
Yeah, you can get your coffee mug to go with your coffee.
There you go.
Nice. Sage, you mentioned Kilauea and Hawaii Volcano National Park in that poem, and that was sort of my first introduction to this island through Bruce and Mick. I'm curious as to your thoughts on Kilauea and the eruption there, and in particular the 2018 eruption. It just didn't even seem real to me what we were seeing. But it's part of life here on the Big Island, right?
There are so many things to say about that 2018 eruption. That year, so for Auntie Pua, Kanahele, Kanakaole Kanahele, she together with many other kumuhula across the islands created this effort called, or a movement called the Aha Hula, or Hālau Ola. So what Hālau Ola was, I can speak more about it if we had more time, but in a debrief, Hālau Ola was a consolidation of different Hālau Hula. And what that effort was, over a period of some years, different Hālau visited different hula heiau. Heiau are specific sort of temples that are dedicated with hula. And so for a couple years prior, they went to the one on Maui and the one on Kauaʻi, and different Hālau participated, and the program sort of ended in Hilo. And what the effort was for Halauola is to literally retrace the steps of Hiiaka Ikapolio Pele, who is one of the younger sisters of Pele. And it's because of Hiiaka that we know and we understand the function of Pele and our ancestors' observations of these phenomenons. So the story goes that Pele has a dream about her lover in Kauaʻi, Lohiau. And so she sends Hiiaka to go get him. Hiiaka has never been on a journey like this before. So she starts her journey in Puna at this beach called Hāʻena, which you may know of today as Shipman Beach. So she goes there and she learns the hula. She battles this huge lizard, this huge mo'o in Panaeva. She faces a bunch of challenges on her way up to Kauaʻi. And when she gets there, Lohiau is dead. So she has to bring him back to life. So she prays him back to life. And then they take a little longer to come back. And Pele starts to get impatient. So she starts getting jealous, thinking that Hiiaka and Lohiau are hooking up. And so she burns Hiiaka's forest. So Pele is the lava element, and Hiiaka is the forest element. So Hiiaka is younger than Pele because the forest comes after the lava. And what's interesting is when you break down the word lohi actually is a word that we use for a delay, and au is a period of time. So when you look at the story of Hiiaka Ikapolio Pele, and you can Google it too, that is an age-old tradition. That oral tradition is one of the canonical pieces in Hawaiian literature. And it's been dismissed as mythology. It's been dismissed as legend, like a lot of other Hawaiian stories. And I'm so blown away that the 2018 eruption happened the way it did, because the way that the story is told, the way that the Hiiaka Ikapolio Pele story is told, is exactly what we seen with the 2018 eruption. So the forest is responsible for attracting moisture in the air. And so how do you give life to someone? Well, you need water, right? Because you can't have life without water. Mm-hmm. So when Hiiaka meets Lohiau, when you talk about bringing someone back from the dead or restoring life, you're essentially talking about inundating that person or thing with water, right? Mm-hmm. So we saw Kauaʻi flood. And nowhere between the flood on Kauaʻi and the eruption did you hear civil defense say, oh, hey, guys, Kauaʻi's flooding. Maybe you should go put your shit in storage. Mm-hmm. Because people dismiss the Hawaiian stories thinking that they're just myth or they're just legend. But they're truly our ancestors' observation of what had happened. And their observations were proven to be true in 2018. So the funny thing is, Halauola ended the hula effort to retrace the steps of Hiiaka Ikapolio Pele happened at the exact same time that the eruption was happening. In fact, the hula halaus who came to visit were not able to perform at the heiau that we had designated for that purpose because the ash was so strong and the earthquakes were so unstable. So we had to push that part of the ceremony back. And so you have this, when people see things like floods or natural disasters, they see it as a negative thing. But the Hawaiian looks at a thunderstorm as a blessing because that thunderstorm is depositing water into the land, which is going to grow vegetation, which in turn is what's going to allow us to live our lives. Yeah, so then anyways, that happened and it was a really trippy event. The opening ceremony for the closing segment of Halawola was at the stadium, at the Edith Kanakaʻoli Stadium. In fact, they kept the Merry Monarch stage up for us. And if you could imagine, it wasn't like super advertised in the mainstream. Like it was pretty big in the hula community, but the opening ceremony, like people in the audience were very sparse. It was only like really close family members who came of the dancers. But there were, if you could imagine, the Merry Monarch stage filled with chanters. And the dancers on the floor of the stadium. So the whole tennis stadium surrounding the stage was lined with dancers.
Wow.
Can you guys imagine that?
That's incredible.
500 people we did the Ava ceremony for. And it was kind of a rush because we weren't really anticipating that many people. So we had to get a bunch of things together at the last minute, but that was the biggest Ava ceremony probably in modern history. So Ava ceremony basically is, there's this drink, some people, Fijians or other Pacific Islanders call it kava. It's a root that's used in ceremony. It has a numbing effect on the body. It's medicinal. So while we were, having this ceremony, it was just the week. It was like not even a month after the initial eruption at Keahialaka.
How do you reconcile how you're experiencing the eruption compared to like Mick and Bruce, who are getting in a helicopter each morning and flying over and documenting it in more of a journalistic sense?
Well, that's a great question. There was, for me personally, I did not go to see it. A lot of my friends, were, I know a lot of people who went, and I know a number of people who took helicopter tours. I live in Puna on Kololi, so that's all you heard all day long is just helicopters flying over and over. And I thought about it, and we were gonna do it, but I didn't want to go. Where we were at my house, I could see the glow. I could hear it when my son and I were home when the first earthquake came. He was sick from school and we had stayed home, and the earthquake hit. And what's so trippy about all those fissures that opened is being in Puna, I could hear it. It went boom. You just heard that.
Yep.
For like 2 weeks at a time. And
Crazy.
And I would wake up to the glow. I would fall asleep to the glow because our bedroom window faced that direction. And so from my house, you could see very well the light coming from that area.
I find it fascinating the way so many people relate differently to the volcano here on the island. You've just given us your experience. Mick and Bruce are flying over it, documenting it, and then you have other people doing the same, but then you have civil defense and the National Guard trying to keep people away from it.
Well, it's sensationalism, right? So you have people wanting to come out, and then you have people not wanting to leave their homes. And then you have people, visitors coming or news or whatever, wanting to go and see it because it's such a great phenomenon. And I think that I wasn't against people doing that. I thought it was really cool. I followed everyone who did it on Instagram. And that's kind of how I kept up to date on what was going on. But because I could see the glow from my house and I could smell the glow and I could hear it, I felt like that was good enough for me. And I really think that there comes a point when the environment or the element needs its space. And for me personally, I did not feel called to go into that space. I felt called to give her space. And so I stayed away.
What about you, Bruce? Were you called?
Kinda.
Yeah, I think so. Documenting Kilauea is, I don't know, I guess it is kind of like a calling. I mean, I feel this longing to shoot that activity, to capture the beauty, but also the destruction. I mean, every aspect of it is really interesting and captivating to me.
It's definitely a calling for me. From the very first time I saw it, I was just completely taken by it. I couldn't believe my eyes. And when I actually got a camera and started shooting it, I found that it was virtually impossible, and this remains today, 35 years later, it's impossible for me to just watch it. I just have this instinctive desire to document it. I just have to document it. And I don't know why that is, but it's hypnotic. It's amazing. It's beautiful. It's destructive. It's, in some ways, it's ugly. But it's kind of like a microcosm of life itself. It's light and it's dark. It's alive and it's not. And it's the most amazing thing I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah.
Living in Leilani when it was happening was absolutely surreal. Or I should say, having a home here. We weren't here for very much of it. We would come and go, come back to our place. And it was, you couldn't believe it was happening. You could not believe what your eyes were taking in. It was just, and it was so enormous. I mean, we're not talking about a little, Kilauea outburst or pu'uo'o. We're talking about Mauna Loa size eruption.
Right.
It was enormous. And
it was humbling.
Absolutely.
Truly was.
And that's what aiha'a is. Aiha'a is knowing your place and knowing that there are elementals that are much greater than you, and understanding your relationship to that element. And we personify Pele because she has female functions, right? If you look at any volcano, it's kind of like a vagina of the earth. Because land is literally being born from that place.
Yep.
And everything that we have on land is then born from that place. And so it's like when a woman is giving birth, you only want functional people in the space. Like you guys had a function. Your function was to document, and not anybody can do that. You know what I'm saying?
Sure.
People can go and visit and take pictures with their phones, but the kind of pictures that you guys pump out, like not a lot of people can get those photos. And so you had a function there. Whereas for myself personally, I'm a mom of 2 small kids. I don't belong there.
You know, I remember interviewing Kekuhi, and she said to me, I asked her if she'd seen the latest eruption, whatever it was, and she said no. And I said, don't you go to see the lab? She says, no, not usually. She said, I said, you've seen it lots of times. She says, no, I've seen it about a half a dozen times. And I was shocked. I thought, well, that would be something she would have seen over and over and over. And she said, no, I've seen it. I've seen her, and I don't need to see it anymore.
Yeah.
And I went,
you know, people kind of, I kind of got that impression too from people. They're like, are you guys going to go dance? You know, like, you're the Pele people. Are you guys going to go dance?
Right.
But I think that part of our relationship with her is knowing when to leave her alone.
Yeah.
And when to give her space to do what she needs to do.
Yeah.
And so we didn't even talk about it at Hula.
Interesting.
The only reason why we talked about it, well, we were also in ceremony too at the time. So what you say and what you think during times of ceremony are restricted. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So even when we are done with Hālau, it continued on. And we didn't even talk about it. We just carried on like normal, went to hula practice. And, you know, I'm sure people were wondering, like, is Hālau Kekuhi going to go and dance? And no, absolutely never even spoke of it. And it's because I think, I can't speak for my kumu, but as a hula dancer, I understand that is her space. And getting into Mauna Kea or Wā Kea, part of understanding your role and your function is also knowing your space, knowing what spaces you belong in and what spaces you don't belong in. And when you look at that fire spewing as high as it was, we don't belong there.
You know, I mentioned to Kekuhi about, I said, we refer to it sometimes to Pele's manifestations as the birth of the earth. And Kekuhi said, no, it's birth. And I said, well, the birth of the earth. And she said, no, it's just birth. Took me kind of a while to wrap my head around that. But, you know, speaking of, you brought up that volcanoes are like a woman, and that have you ever been to the Vagina Cave in Orchid Land? There's a place called the Vagina Cave.
No, but that's probably named after Kapo.
Yeah, I thought it was Hiiaka, but maybe I'm wrong. Anyway.
No, well, Kapo is another sister of Pele.
And the pig god, right?
Yeah. So what happened was Kamapua'a was the pig man, and he ended up taking Pele sexually. But I think on a scientific level, that basically means that when the landscape is born, something has to till the landscape. Something has to break it open so that the lichens or the ferns or the initial vegetation can get water and grow. So if you go to the lava flow, you guys know this. You see the lichens coming out through cracks. And that's what pigs do. Pigs dig and they create cracks. And through those cracks, vegetation can grow. So in order to, Kamapua'a ran away from Pele. You know, he hit it and quit it. What a guy. So she's like, what? Oh, and Pele is just not having that, right? She's just like, hell no. So she sends Kapo, her sister, and this form of Kapo is called Kapokohelele, the Flying Vagina. And she sends Kapo over to go fetch Kamapua'a, who went back to Oahu to help his brother, whom he thought was, he dreamt that his brother needed him and was in danger. So he went back to Oahu. And so the coco head in Hawaii Kai is where Kapo landed. And the Hawaiian name for that is Kapokohelele, the Flying Vagina. So when you do that hike over that crater, it looks like a vagina. So the idea, the thing to remember about Hawaiian mythology is when you have these instances, it's like you cannot dismiss the fact that Kapo this vagina flew from Puna to Oahu. That is not some kinky, weird sexual thing. That is our ancestors' way of telling us, hey man, the eruption that created that crater in Hawaii Kai is related or a result of the volcanic activity that was happening in Puna. Mm-hmm. And the rains that you saw on Kauaʻi, the rains that we saw flooding Kauaʻi, you're adding water pressure, which is very dense, to the Earth's crust, which is going to cause pressure, which is going to cause instability on the islands that are on top of the crust. And the magma underneath it then is also going to be affected by that pressure. So it's really stupid to not take these chants and these stories seriously. Sure. Because if the government and if the civil defense looked into it, they would be able to know the symptoms. Pregnancy and giving birth, we refer to it as giving birth because there is a gestational period. And people don't pay attention to those gestational signs of volcanism. They think the volcano just pops off randomly. It doesn't. It gives us signs. And the chants tell us what those signs are. They tell us, they're very detailed. They tell us the sound. They tell us the cracks, where the cracks are. They tell us what kind of rain is associated with that. So if you've lived here long enough to observe the rain, you know that we have different types of rain. We have torrential rain. We have nice rain. We have, sideways rain. And paying attention to the water is very important because Kane, the freshwater, and Kanaloa are also Pele's siblings. So when you see companions or siblings or children or parents in Hawaiian literature, basically what they're saying is that, hey, these elements or these landscapes are related somehow. Somehow, rain is connected to lava. Somehow, the lava is connected to the vegetation on top of the lava. And so that's why I studied Hawaiian literature.
There's a formation in Orchid Land that I've been to several times, which we refer to as the Vagina Cave. And it's the most, hands down, the most amazing formation I've ever seen in my life. It is literally a 9-foot long vagina that is anatomically correct and is a different color from the rest of the lava around it. There are two shelves, which could be considered legs, that go from it. And at the bottom of it is a raised platform, it may be actually a Hālau platform, with a skylight above it with a shaft of light that comes through that lands on the platform. It's underneath the vagina are three or four rooms that are round with smooth black rock, like a womb. And you have to see it to believe it. It's crazy.
Well,
it is so beautiful.
You have to take me there one day.
Well, I don't know if I can get in there anymore, but I think it's locked up. But it's crazy beautiful. Crazy beautiful. I shot it one time, and I don't know if I can still get that tape to play, but it's phenomenal. If you've never been, you should ask around. Ask Pua guys if they've been there or if that's something they would never do, or I don't know.
Sage, have you been to Leilani and seen the eruption zone since it finished in 2018?
Yeah, we went to, that was the first time in February, we went to Fissure 8. And we danced there in the road for the first time.
After the eruption.
Yeah, this was just in February. This was like 2 months ago, 3 months ago, whatever. That was our first time dancing there, not as a Hālau, but as papakumakawalu, as people who, we were committed to observing our environment and figuring out what those observations mean to us through the framework of chant. So what we learned in that papakumakawalu workshop is that, that's why Mauna Kea, and that's probably a whole nother episode, but Mauna Kea is so important, and the fight for Mauna Kea is so important right now, because what people need to understand, which I'm not sure if they do, but people need to understand that 13,000 foot mountain was not built overnight. And so if you guys think that Leilani is done, it's just getting started.
No. I mean, that's fine, but can we delay that a little bit, please?
Yeah, it's for real. I mean, that's just the beginning of a new mountain.
Oh, no, I'm sure of that, but it doesn't have to happen in this century, does it?
It probably will.
Well, how about not the next 20 years? How's that?
Oh, boy.
Yeah, I don't know. Aren't there still some homes like steaming in the area?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Homes and a lot of other things.
Yeah,
Right.
Bruce to where we are.
Bruce wants it to erupt yesterday, Bruce is chomping at the bit.
Well, the important thing to understand, and that's why studying these chants is so important, because it explains the landscape and the topography. So basically, the lava is fluid, right? So it'll follow the lowlands. So that's one way to prepare. And, honestly, you can sit there and be like, no, don't happen, and do your little prayers with your tea leaves or whatever. But the reality of the situation is it'll happen. And you need to accept that, and you need to prepare yourself for it by educating yourself on what those symptoms are before it happens.
Yeah. Well, it was a little unnerving in 2018, it came within 500 feet of our property. So, it was a little nerve wracking, but I've been watching it for a long time. So I know what she does, and I'm very familiar with it. But, watching it is one thing. Watching it go past your house is another. So.
Totally.
Sure
well,
is.
then you got to go and get all your stuff. Then, unfortunately, have to deal with all the finances. And I know people who have lost their homes. It was really, really sad.
Oh, it was unbelievable. Unbelievable.
And very humbling. And to see their reaction, I work with a woman, Auntie Roberta. Her home is still there. I think the neighbor's home is not there. Her neighbor's home is not there. But when she was explaining how she left, she was telling me that the conversation she had with Pele was like, okay, do what you got to do. Take my house. Just let me and my family get out of here safely. Mm-hmm. And so she was telling her they were watching it take the neighbor's house. And she was telling her son, like, we got to get out of here already. And he was like, Mom, just let me walk around my yard one last time.
Sure.
And say goodbye to my trees and everything like that. And I'm like crying just thinking about it, because man, to have that interaction, that's mainly, I mean, not mainly, but that's one of the main reasons why I didn't go there, is because I knew that the people in the area were under stress. And I didn't want to be one of those spectators who just parked my car and watched as they, dealt with whatever they needed to deal with.
Sure. It's like you're invading somebody's space, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a personal moment.
Right. And so I thought, I have friends who live out there and they were sending me updates too, like as it was getting closer to the geothermal plant. Friends who lived out there were sending me text messages, and everyone really came together and was in really good communication. And so I think just the community in general grew a lot from that experience. And I think it's one of the things that is starting to wake people up.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Sage, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks, Sage. That was
Yeah,
great.
mahalo, Sage.
Another episode in the
for
books,
sure.
you guys.
It's great. We shared so much with us. Really appreciate
You
it.
were wonderful.
Well, thank you so
thank you
much
for
for having
sharing.
me. And I wouldn't mind doing this again and have interview questions for you guys.
Yeah.
Sounds good.
I like that.
Sounds good.
Because you guys must have some really interesting tales to tell. You guys are the story keepers now,
Bruce, it sounds like she wants to put us on the hot seat.
Ooh.
Well, I'm curious. I mean, man.
Yeah, we'll do
Yeah.
it again
Absolutely.
for sure.
We have a few.
Absolutely.
Okay.
For sure.
Thank you so much. You take care.
Okay.
Thanks, Sage.
Okay.
Sounds
Thanks for
good.
sharing.
Thanks, Bruce.
Thanks. Aloha.
Thank you
Aloha.
guys.
Thank you.
Aloha.
Mahalo nui.
Mm-hmm.
So, hey, guys, another episode in the books.
Don't forget, we're running a contest through May 31st, 2020. Go to onhawaiiantimepodcast.com and click on the contest link. The winner gets a $100 Amazon.com e-gift card.
I want one.
And not for employees.
Oh. So, you guys want bonus content? Well, go to the very top of onhawaiiantimepodcast.com and sign up for our email updates. We'll give you a free trial of OHT Plus through the end of June. You'll hear the bloopers and a lot of other stuff that we're embarrassed to even put out, but we're going to be chatting about before we actually start the podcast. I can't believe we're doing this, but this is all up to our illustrious producer, and we love you guys.
And occasionally we'll give you some information regarding coupons that'll give you discounts towards our merchandise we make available on our website. That's on hawaiiantimepodcast.com.
You can also support us by buying some of our stuff, including my coffee and an On Hawaiian Time mug. Click the merch link on our website.
We want to give a special thanks to Joel Marcus, who designed our logo, and to Jamie at Silver Line Sound.
Hey, so if you haven't subscribed to this podcast, please do it now on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. It helps us attract advertisers, and we need that to keep this podcast going. I'm Mick Kalber.
I'm Bruce Omori.
I'm Ann Kalber.
I'm Tim Coakley.
And you've been...
On Hawaiian Time.
Aloha.
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 Aloha.